You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer reporter.
I'm sitting here just dancing away. Good morning. It is Thursday. It's time for the Reefer Reporters with myself and Glenn Prentice.
Good morning.
Good morning. We have 9 cannabis stories, news stories lined up, plus, of course, our Mushie Moment. And we are live here from the Legacy 420 News Desk on the Pace Radio Network. I will get to the point where I don't need these papers anymore and I can just go through it. So I'll get there eventually. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning.
How are
How's
you?
things? I'm doing great.
Excellent. I'm really excited because in not even a month, in a couple weeks, less than a couple weeks, I am going to be leaving from Windsor and heading to Ontario, and I get to stop and meet you and another friend before I get there. So that's pretty cool. So we'll make sure to take some selfies so we can upload them to the network page.
Can't wait.
Yeah, Reefer Reporters visiting Reefer Reporters. It's always awesome. So we've got 10 stories on tap this morning, 5 before the break and 5 after. So we might as well get right to it, eh?
Sure.
So we are at first, okay, let me click buttons here, heading over to StratCan. Over at StratCan, they are examining the pros and cons of provincial cannabis distribution.
The provincially mandated centralized distribution of cannabis in Canada is taking some heat. In Ontario, the OCS, which is Ontario Cannabis Store, was hit with a data breach last May, followed by a recent online attack of its third-party operated distribution center, Domain Logistics, and a BC union job action has resulted in the centralized cannabis distribution warehouse suspending orders. There's no surprise. The industry is now seeing a healthy debate on the pros and cons of provincial centralized distribution, and particularly monopsonies, monopsonies, where there is only one buyer. Wow.
Yeah, in Canada, producers pay a premium margin to here we go again, monopsony, whatever. I don't get the word either. Distributors who act as a single buyer and price setter for wholesale finished packaging in inventory, and I think what they mean is monopoly. I think that's the gist that they're trying to get there. And this is said by Dan Sutton, who is the founder and CEO of Tantalus Lab in Vancouver. In a nascent industry, this arguably simplifies a cultivator's ability to access all retailers in a given province. Although in practice, stores that stock and carry products still require ongoing sales relationships. Sutton notes that when compared to direct delivery models, the cost and margin captured by provincial distributors are high. The actual value provided by warehousing and distributing inventory is not reflected in provincial markups, he said. Thus, provincial markups essentially act as a tariff, increasing dead weight loss and reducing competitiveness within the illicit market.
Yeah. However, centralized government-run systems have distinct advantages. Many retailers appreciate the simplicity. Producers aren't forced to place hundreds of different shipments to retailers, or perhaps worse, with distributors who engage in predatory practices. There's also pluses for smaller providers. There's always the question of why government monopolies are running the distribution of packaged goods, says Andrew Wong, who's the founder and chief executive officer of Zyre Brands in Vancouver. However, there is actually a lot of benefits of this model, and people need to recognize I am a very small owner-operated local company. Had it not been for this model, that suppresses pay to play at the biggest retailer in BC, which is the government stores, I probably wouldn't be on their shelves. And if I were on their shelves, I would probably be price negotiated to a level that's not sustainable for a small company to operate, because I don't have the economies of scale. Producers also have the benefit of simplified invoicing and the ability to send all their product to one place. But it also means that if something happens, they don't get their stuff.
Yeah, as we've seen now in Ontario and BC.
Yeah.
You know, prime examples. In a centralized system, I send everything to one location and get paid 30 days later, says Abian Shoup, who oversees sales and operations of Organicraft, a licensed micro producer in Vernon, BC. Otherwise, I have to send 4 cases to one store, 2 to the next, 5 to another. That adds countless hours to me as a salesperson. I have to chase down the invoices, and my bookkeeper and CFO have to add them to add them and reconcile the books. That was something I had to do in Saskatchewan all the time, which is what a lot of places do. I mean, like we have places like popping into my head in comparison, Claire's. It's a store that teenage girls like to go to get their earrings and get their makeup and whatever. And now the big corporation, they buy everything and ship out to their stores, and that saves money. Yes. For, all the way around. And that's where, that's the same kind of model that's going on here. But that doesn't really help everybody. And like you said, if something goes down, and come on, this is a cannabis industry. It's a brand new industry. We know there's going to be things going on. And they only have one distributor. I mean, that puts a hindrance on the whole province. And then therefore, all of the customers. And it's...
excuse me. If Claire's doesn't get their order of earrings, nobody really gets hurt.
No, but exactly.
If there's no cannabis, all the patients don't have cannabis, and they get hurt.
Exactly. So there has to be. I mean, maybe they have 2 or 3 distributors. Maybe there's got to be a way to get through it, right? You would actually hope. Saskatchewan is an interesting example, given that the government has stepped aside and allows producers to ship directly to retailers or to work with competing distributors. Saskatchewan offers its own unique challenges, says Gord Nicol, owner and president of North 40 Cannabis in Saskatchewan. Nipawin. You don't have to convince a government board to buy your product. Instead, you have to convince each store. However, as a small independent producer, I much prefer this system over trying to convince a board. In my view, it's easier to sell to a store as opposed to a board, just because the store is closer to the end consumer and will be more dialed into demand. And also, I feel like you're dealing with somebody, if you're dealing directly with a store owner, you're dealing with somebody who consumes cannabis and probably in all the ways, and they have helped themselves medically, emotionally, mentally heal with cannabis, and they want to offer that to everybody else. So you're dealing with somebody who has, in my mind, a heck of a lot more compassion than a board of suits.
Yeah, and I was thinking about something too. If you order directly from the grower or producer of the cannabis, chances are you're going to get a much more fresher supply than you will ordering through a government system that has to ship to a centralized warehouse and then reship it again.
Yep, there's that as well. Absolutely.
And that's pretty important to me. I like it to be fresh. I like it to be, the moisture in it that I like.
Yep.
Yep,
and not have to re-moisturize.
Yeah.
Because you can do that, but I don't find it to be the same as if you had a nice cured fresh cannabis.
Yep, exactly. Yep. A distribution system like that in Saskatchewan also allows for significantly more flexibility. Mm-hmm. I've been in situations in Saskatchewan where a certain SKU had run its cycle and a retailer had a hard time moving it, says Shup from Organicraft. I could offer a discount on a new product and they could blend the margins and sell both at once. That was easy. You can solve problems on the fly. Direct delivery promises an opportunity for more pricing flexibility. British Columbia, for example, recently launched its own direct delivery program, which is focused on indigenous small-scale producers. In this new system, the BCLDB's 15% markup will still apply. And we talked about that, and I don't think that's a fair system either. No. Because they're doing nothing for their 15%. And I believe 15% is too much anyway.
Yeah, they're just trying to keep their markup in that way. Like, listen, we want our dollar bills, and no matter what, you're going to give them to us.
Yeah, and now they've downloaded all this work to the people who have to direct ship this. Yeah. And it doesn't make sense to me, and they're still paying 15%.
And I understand that the government wants their stipends for allowing this and whatever, but if you're going to charge 15% to distribute it, charge less to allow them to distribute it themselves.
And there's taxes on this too.
Absolutely.
So the 15% markup, and then they're taxing this 15% markup.
Yep.
So it's a double tax right away. I don't know.
Oh, and there's even more. I mean, it goes way beyond that. Like when they first brought it out, the government wanted $1 a gram,
Yeah.
right? So if and then plus tax, and then plus this, and then plus that, and then they're going to tax all of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's gross.
It's about money. That's why it was legalized in the first place. I firmly believe that.
I agree.
BC's direct delivery model, ironically, adds flexibility for small batch offerings targeted at local or specialized stores, but margins the high tariff cost of participating in the provincial cannabis market, said Sutton. Direct delivery that retains high tariffs maintains dead weight loss, makes legal cannabis more expensive than its illicit competitors, and adds no value to the supply chain.
Yeah, I agree. And the answer is, as jurisdictions in Canada continue to tinker with the distribution models, it's fair to ask, what's the best system? For some observers, it's a hybrid structure that allows for private distributors to participate in direct delivery. In a hybrid model, small producers with sales teams can opt to work with one of several distributors who are forced to price their service competitively, says Sutton. And more mature producers can deal directly with an increasing number of retail stockists. And demand for their product, grows. A hybrid model that includes direct delivery allows for flexibility in the relationship between licensed producers and retailers. It also prevents extreme market distortions and can occur with large monopolies like OCS.
Yeah. I don't get to tell the OCS what I have available. They just tell me what they want, says Shup from Organic Craft. For example, when we launched our Platinum Grapes SKU, it sold out immediately. The OCS saw that and sent me 3 purchase orders that equaled 52,000 units for the month of July. That's 300 pounds. We're a micro and can't grow that much right now. But because I can't deliver it, I'm being penalized. My supplier rating has gone down. The glitch could even affect future listings because the OCS algorithm could determine that the Organic Craft SKU is not selling as well as it should be, based purely on how much volume should have been ordered. This kind of dysfunction is presumably reduced when competition is introduced within a hybrid distribution model. And I think this is a government problem too. It's the same thing they do with everything.
Yep, absolutely. As long as there is more than one distributor in a given market, these distributors are compelled to price their services in a competitive manner, says Sutton. Competition from a hybrid model drives distribution margin down to a commodity value over time, reduces the risk of a single point of failure, and lets producers adapt to more direct relationships as their businesses grow, should they choose to. Sutton argues that though a centralized distribution model may appear to simplify the supply chain for producers, they still need to maintain sales relationships with their stores and conduct internal demand planning. I mean, absolutely, because even though, like in Ontario, even though there's one distributor, like they supply a variety. So they supply A to Z, Afira to Broken Coast, to Organic Craft, to, they have a choice. So if I own a store, I can go, I want to buy that and that and that and that and that and forget the rest of it. Why the guy down the street may buy the rest of it and forget, they have their choices. And, so they still need, a producer still needs to make nice with the retailers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because you want them to pick your product, even if it's just from the OCS and not you directly, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Sutton argues that though a centralized distribution model may appear to simplify the supply chain for producers, they still need to maintain sales relationships with their stores and conduct internal demand planning. They also shoulder the financial burden of returns should a product age out. It's not difficult to sell to 50, 100, or 500 stores directly, he says. Businesses from breweries to bakeries to hobby farms do it every day with far fresher time to market obligations. That's what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. A hybrid model should also help to break down barriers to smaller producers and to interprovincial trade. Given that Ontario is Canada's largest market, producers want to get in, but it's not always easy.
Nope. There are hundreds of stores in Ontario. Hundreds. Over 1,000 now, isn't there?
Yeah.
That want my products, but I can't get in, says Nicole from North 40 Cannabis. The OCS wants wants me to buy a $15 million recall insurance
Whoa.
policy. Wow, which costs $50,000. That works fine for the large companies who can afford it, but it really functions as a way to keep the small companies out of the market. It's completely out of touch with our sales volume and revenues. And there are challenges with BC too. BC had an opportunity to make some gains when allowing for direct delivery from producer to retailer, says Nicole. They did that. Then they slammed the door on out-of-province providers. Interprovincial trade barriers are a terrible thing. As soon as the government gets involved, they put up these gates. I would love to see Saskatchewan shut the doors to BC wines for a month and then see what happens.
I wish they would. Beyond the policy issues of late, the biggest argument against having big players like the OCS and the BC Liquor Distribution Branch monopolize warehousing and distribution is that when they fail, the entire system fails. As seen recently in the OCS data breach and the BC Liquor Distribution Branch union dispute, says Sutton, this single point of failure compromises the industry's ability to keep products on shelves. In a more general sense, however, it may be important not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Here, for example, the Zy brands is instructional, given that the company has a unique offering that sells flavored vapes based on their vibe. The BC LDB looked at my product simply for its merit, said Wong from Zyre. They saw that it was a unique offering and said, I'd like it, I'll take it. Whereas had it been a private model with a large chain of stores, they might have said, I like it, but what am I getting in exchange for carrying it? That's a weird way to look at things.
Yeah.
I myself, if I was a micro producer, I would prefer to deal with stores directly. I think it's a much better way to go for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what they like. There are 3 Farmgate stores in New Brunswick.
Yep.
Now, and I've before I actually head out for my drive to Ontario, I've got to stop and see if I'm hoping to go buy one, because I mean I would love to support a Farmgate store.
My daughter's girlfriend is the manager of one of the Farmgate stores. I'll send you a message and tell you which one it is. It's by Moncton. So
Perfect.
You're probably heading right past where she is.
Perfect. And that's the one I'll go to.
Give you a whole tour of the facility. So it's good. Her name's Danica. I'll send you a message with the rest of the info.
Perfect. Oh, that would be wicked. Oh yeah, thanks.
Not a problem for me. It's good. I've never been there myself.
Oh wow, that would be fantastic. Yeah. But for now, we're gonna head over to MSN. And this one caught my eye. More kids hospitalized for cannabis, and I'm going to do air quotes even though you can't see me, poisonings after edibles legalized, study finds.
The average number of kids hospitalized for unintentional cannabis poisonings spiked in some provinces after they legalized edibles, according to a new study published Wednesday in the New England Journal of Medicine. The Ontario-based researchers also found that 3 such provinces, Alberta, BC, and Ontario, saw twice the increase in pediatric hospitalizations than Quebec, which prohibited edibles at the time of the study. Unlike adults, where they would mostly get high, maybe a little bit drowsy, when young children ingest edibles, they may become very, very sick. We've seen kids with seizures, kids who have stopped breathing, said Dr. Yaron Finkelstein, a senior author of the study and staff physician at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto.
Their symptoms.
I think this is. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to walk on you there. I think this is just common sense. If there's more things out there, more kids are going to get into them. It's a problem with the parents storing it properly. That's what it always is, and that's with alcohol. That's with pills. That's with everything. Yeah,
it doesn't matter what your med of choice is. Keep it up and away from kids. Get a locked cabinet. Yeah. And your little kids are going to be, if you've got them in a locked cabinet and whatnot and away and up, and if you teach them, most of them are going to listen. And especially if you've got them locked away, it's your teenagers that will try to break into the locked cabinets. And that goes the same with alcohol. I can remember being a teenager and, stealing booze from my parents' liquor cabinet. So it's the same idea. You're absolutely right.
And educate your kids as soon as you can, as soon as they are able to grasp.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of our other joint hosts here on the show has written a book to help you educate your children, your young children. And it teaches them that cannabis is a medicine and deserves respect.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful book to help you open up the conversation. It's a great way to do that without being, it's just a great way to do it. It's a great way to open up the conversation. So
teach you how to do it.
Yeah. So and that's Reverend Kelly who wrote that book with her husband. And it's a beautiful book. I don't know if you've read it yet, but it's an absolutely gorgeous book. And when the first time I read it honestly brought me to tears.
I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Oh, you absolutely should read it. It literally brought me to tears. I've been I take it with me everywhere and make people read it. It only takes a few minutes to read it. So I'm like, here, read this.
Awesome.
Yeah. So education. Yeah. And there are easier and easier ways out there every day to help you with talking to your children about that. And their symptoms, they're saying, especially in young children, can be more severe and can be life-threatening, especially if it's not clean cannabis, folks, because it's the chemicals that we're not washing out of our cannabis that can do a lot of harm. And we have seen that, and that's why there are people suing some of the licensed producers that decided to use chemicals and the wrong ones because we've been hurt. Cannabis-related hospitalizations among children has significantly increased since the legalization of edibles. Federal law requires cannabis-infused edibles, including gummy candies, chocolate, or baked goods, to be sold in plain packaging so as not to appeal to children, and with no more than 10 milligrams of the psychoactive compound THC. But even these precautions are not enough, Finkelstein said. These kids are still at risk.
That's why Finkelstein and other pediatricians say parents and guardians should store edibles away from kids. Kids are affected differently by such products and could get very sick. Pediatricians say, however, how much was eaten, the type of edible, the age and size of the child are all factors. They are made to be yummy, and it can be very tempting for a young person to try one of these things, thinking that it's a yummy cookie or brownie or gummies or other edible products, said Dr. Diana Kulik, a Toronto-based pediatrician who was not involved in the study. But what the study shows, as part of the research, Dean and colleagues wanted to see how having more cannabis products on the market after legalization affected the number of kids hospitalized for poisoning.
Yeah, the compared provincial hospitals data over 3 time periods: before legalization of cannabis in Canada, after legalization first became legal, and after legalization of edibles. So, because we did a couple of steps there with legalizing. In the first period, they found that 581 kids between 1 and 9 years old had been hospitalized for cannabis poisoning, and that was between the years of 2015 and 2018, January to September. There were an average of 2 such hospitalizations per month in Alberta, BC, and Ontario, according to data provided to CBC News.
And the number grew to 5.2 on average per month after cannabis became legal, according to the data. After edibles were legalized in those provinces, it increased again to 14.9. In Quebec, the increase was smaller. The province averaged at about 0.7 monthly hospital visits due to cannabis poisonings before legalizations, but that tripled after edibles were legalized to about 2.1. The researchers did not specify if any kids died during the study period. I think we would have heard of that.
Yeah, we would have. And as much as I don't want to argue with this, I want to read this, and I know that we have to be careful, and we have to lock up our edibles, and we all know that cannabis doesn't kill.
Yes.
Right.
That's why I think we would have heard of this, kids dying.
Yeah. Does it get them to a point where they don't understand what's going on, and they have panic attacks, and they get upset, and they don't feel well, and yeah. Absolutely. So we have to be careful. We have to lock them up. It is our responsibility, and accidents do happen. So knowing what to do if accidents happen and your child ingests cannabis is very, very important. If you don't know, the hospital is the right place to take them. I mean, you've got, they will keep them hydrated, they will keep them calm, and they will help them get through the quote unquote trip. Because, the kids aren't expecting it and they don't want it. And at the age of 9, you don't understand it.
No.
Is really what it comes down to. No, you're not ready to understand it. And that's where we go back to education. You've got to teach your kids about this. And, and not just to stay away from it until you're a certain age, but what it's for, and that it needs proper respect and proper use, the same as any other medication.
I had cookies. I have 5 kids, and I had cookies in my freezer most of their youth, all of them. And there was a big X on the back. They all were taught about it as soon as they possibly could. As soon as they could remove it from the freezer, they knew what it was, and they didn't touch it. I never had a problem with it ever.
That's phenomenal. That's good to hear. Yeah, proper education. It works.
Mm-hmm.
It is concerning that with legalization led to more kids having accidental ingestion and toxicity from marijuana products, says Kulik, adding that she has seen a rise in cases at her practice. Deborah Friedman, the trauma director at the Montreal Children's Hospital and McGill University Health Center and an associate professor of pediatrics at McGill, said that the study points to what she and her colleagues are seeing in their emergency departments. Certainly the cases we saw were a result of gummies, chocolates, and cookies, but certainly the numbers did not increase as they did apparently in Alberta, Ontario, and BC, she said, adding that they're still early, that it's still early in legalization and that more monitoring of the trend is needed. Yeah.
And Finkelstein says some parents and guardians don't know their child has ingested an edible, making diagnosis challenging sometimes. Other times, parents choose not to disclose that to doctors. When that happens, we have an unconscious kid where we don't know the reason, and we start to do a lot of investigation, he said. Some of those kids undergo many more painful examinations until we identify the reason, especially if we're not told about the exposure to cannabis. Friedman says guardians should watch for common symptoms like vomiting, drowsiness, increased heart rate, trouble breathing, anxiety, and agitation. She says that parents should take their children to the nearest hospital if cannabis poisoning is suspected.
Yeah. Finkelstein says more needs to be done to stop kids from ingesting edibles. I agree. Lock them up, folks. He, Kulik, and Friedman agree that if parents are bringing edibles into the home, they should be safely stored away from kids. We do want to make sure that these products are very, very far away from curious eyes and curious hands and locked away like other medicines should be, Kulik said.
Definitely.
And I think we have both expressed agreement in that statement for sure.
Yep.
Yes.
Responsible parenting. That's what it is.
Absolutely. And, mistakes do, like I say, they do happen. And that's when you have to know what you should be doing if an accident happens and do the right thing for sure.
Exactly.
For sure. Now we're heading over to my favorite publication, just because I like saying the name of it. I don't know why. The Fresh Toast. I flippin' love it. The Fresh Toast. And the Fresh Toast is telling us clean weed is becoming more popular on the West Coast. But is it better than regular weed? I wonder what the difference is.
Clean products are nothing new, but clean weed is a different thing altogether. A new phenomenon that will likely grow more common, at least according to some experts. The Los Angeles Times reports that clean weed has been making its rounds in San Francisco, becoming one of the most in-demand items in dozens of dispensaries. The product takes its name, like many other clean products, known for their environmentally friendly processes and for the transparency in their components. Clean weed depends on the maker, but it suggests that the cannabis in question is grown organically with the least amounts of pesticides used. These products shouldn't need the help of chemicals to be grown.
The label matters more when discussing vape products. Traditionally, vapes are extracted by submitting the THC to a chemical material like butane, ethanol, or CO2. Completing this process with these elements is not easy, but it's possible. Completing the process without these elements is not easy, but it's possible. My apologies. In a more complicated yet cleaner method that submits the cannabis to a combination of mechanical agitation and changes in temperature. When discussing the perks of clean weed versus traditional weed, the LA Times spoke to Dr. Peter Grinspoon, a primary care physician and cannabis specialist at Massachusetts General Hospital, who compared clean cannabis to organic foods, using fruits as an example.
The regular piece of fruit has a little bit of pesticide in it, but at a level where if it gets through, the government says, this is not going to harm you, said Dr. Greenspoon. I haven't seen any studies that show you're less likely to get cancer if you eat organic vegetables, but everybody thinks intuitively they're healthier. and everybody will pay more for them. And I think it's sort of the same situation. Now more than ever, consumers seem to be concerned with their health and the things that they put into their bodies. The cannabis industry in particular has been the recipient of a lot of criticism, especially in the case of vapes, which have been linked to the variety of health conditions, most pressingly EVALI, a disease that affects people's lungs due to chemicals present in some vape cartridges.
It makes sense then for the cannabis industry to try to get ahead of the competition by using any means at their disposal, including the more laborious process of labeling and making clean weed. More than making a product that is good for customers, this trend is smart marketing.
I think it's smart marketing. I learned the hard way. It's very, very expensive to grow organically compared to growing with chemicals. And the chemicals, if they're not, taken out at the end, cleaned, it gives me a headache almost right away. I can tell very fast if something's grown in chemicals and it hasn't been cleaned.
And it hasn't been properly flushed.
Yeah, it has to be. It definitely has to be. So I grew our organically and small plants, but it's very expensive. About $100 an ounce with the electricity and the feed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, and like I when I grew organically, I used living soil, so no chemicals at all. I mean, I got really large plants, and I did very, very well. But it compared to buying a $40 bushel that will do 2.5 plants to a $100 bushel that does 1 plant, it's a big difference in price. I don't know if I got enough out of it to say that it was worth it. But I mean, it was really good weed, and it burned clean, and it didn't give me that chemical headache like I have had chemical cannabis too. And I am one of the people that got hurt with the wrong chemicals in licensed producer weed. So, I mean, I've got tinnitus and sinus problems from that. So, I mean, I know what it can do. So, I mean, and that comes from they didn't flush it properly at all. There was a lot of cannabis that came from the licensed producers that burned black. And it just wasn't flushed properly at all. So it's really important to, if you use chemicals, to for sure make sure you do 3 weeks of flushing, stick some molasses and some brown sugar in there, really chase out those chemicals before you chop it down.
Yep. Good advice.
Yeah. Let's head over to MJ Biz Daily. The Budtender turnover hinders cannabis industry, and here's how to improve it.
High turnover rates among budtenders continue to plague the cannabis retail sector, a problem that has ramifications for the industry beyond its immediate costs. Budtenders are the first point of contact for consumer education and are often the best bet a cannabis brand has for getting the word out about a product. Cultivators and brands spend sizable portions of their budgets sending their sales reps to stores to educate budtenders about their products. Only they have to leave shortly after. That's $1 million battle right there. You build relationships with budtenders and people that are on the front line to the consumer, and then next thing you know, they've turned, said Chris Morissette, who's the president of Redding, California-based cultivator Ember Valley.
A recent report from the Seattle-based data analytics company Headset found that in both the U.S. and Canada, 55% of budtenders who worked at any point over the previous 12 months had departed by the end of that time period. There's this underlying sense that cannabis retail is immune from all the other retail trends in traditional businesses, and that is just not true, says Mark Rodriguez, who is the president of Greenleaf Business Solutions, a San Diego company that provides payroll and human resources services to cannabis businesses. Fixing the problem.
According to Rodriguez, part of retaining employees in the cannabis sector is legalizing the legitimizing the employee experience. Many cannabis employees are still paid in cash, and many jobs do not have modern benefits such as online pay stubs or 401k plans. There are businesses that provide these type of services for cannabis companies, but they are less common than in mainstream industries.
Absolutely. And that's so shockingly true. Where it's not federally legal in the United States yet. they like, even a legal dispensary can't do legal banking because federally it's illegal.
Yeah.
So it leaves them with quite the conundrum. So yeah, having to pay in cash and to do that kind of banking and whatnot, it's what they're forced into doing. If the federal government would get on it and legalize it, or if the Safe Banking Act would be passed, it would be much easier. And of course, our banking is so influenced by the United States banking that, even though we're completely legalized federally up here, we still, our dispensaries are having, or anybody, even a head shop is having a hard time dealing with banks.
We read stories all the time about that, where the U.S. is trying to force Canadian companies not to, or to stop them from using banks and stop them from doing certain things if they do any business in the States.
Yeah, absolutely. There is access to these things, but they cost, Rodriguez said. They're expensive, and they're much more expensive than any traditional retail or any traditional business that would want the same thing. He estimates he spends an extra $60,000 a year on cannabis-based payroll and employee services. Wow. Jim Finkelstein, who is the CEO of California-based compensation advisory from Future Sense, said retaining employees is more about good leadership, good pay, and good benefits, which you can't have if it's federally illegal.
Yeah, how do you give them benefits? It's the number one reason that people leave is generally they don't like their boss, or they don't feel that they're getting the tools that they need in order to be able to advance their own personal competencies, Finkelstein said. You have all of those dials: environment, culture, development, reward. They're going to impact turnover tremendously. Some companies plan for high turnover in the cannabis space, a business strategy known as come, contribute, and leave. However, Finkelstein said this strategy hurts business owners in the long run. Mm-hmm. It's a legitimate business strategy, he said. On the other hand, some come, contribute, and stay is probably a better business strategy, because then there's the cost of turnover. And I also like to deal with the same people when I go to a place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I managed a dispensary here and, left for very similar reasons. I had a lot of my patients following me. Like, I don't want to deal with somebody else new, Cindy.
Yeah.
Like, no. Right. And it's, you see it all the time. And as a patient, I've gone to different dispensaries, and it's really quite upsetting when you walk in and there's always a new face. Right?
Yeah. And you have to grow to trust someone. It takes time.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. It's not just the hiring cost. It's the gap of not having somebody on the line, not having somebody at the front desk, the opportunity cost of needing to train people up again, and we got to learn from older markets. According to Finkelstein, if cannabis retailers want to improve their employee retention, they can learn from strategies that have been more successful in the past from mainstream names, such as a hotel operator, Marriott International. We know, for example, Marriott was very successful over the years in retaining housekeepers, he said, because they had a profit-sharing program that if you had a 30-year career with the Marriott Corporation, you can walk away with $250,000.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Mm.
They have to be told how important their job is to the customer experience. They have to be recognized. They have to be trumpeted out there as being so valuable to how the whole process occurs. Both Rodriguez and Finkelstein likened cannabis retail to traditional retail in that the bulk of turnover occurs in entry-level positions such as budtenders. Thus, budtenders can be compared to sales associates in clothing stores in terms of the type of employee the position attracts. Not everybody's going to come in here and be full-time, said Duncan Lay, owner of the California Street Cannabis Co. in San Francisco.
Yeah, well, maybe they're a student, or maybe they're a mother or an artist. Lay described his retention as super low, but maintained a positive stance on the matter, likening the low retention to just one more thing retail owners must adapt to. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't have to just fire somebody recently, because I did, he said. We've got to bring people in, get them excited, and then when they leave, I want them to go on to something that's better and different.
How about they don't leave?
How about they don't leave? How about we find people that, that want to stay, right? But we have to, like, if somebody's going to come in, like a young mother, like they said, is going to come in, she needs benefits. And she needs, a good
that's
pay.
The hard thing to offer there.
Yeah. And she needs to be able to, build her credit and whatnot. And you can't do that if you don't have an official paycheck coming in. And that's what a young mother needs. So, I mean, I understand why she's leaving for this job over here that has the 401k and has the benefits, and has all that she can, rely on. And anybody, I mean, a student heading to school or, doing stuff like that, they want to make sure that they can put on paper what they're doing. Because right now, even, I mean, I'm not even sure if they'd want to put on paper that they are working at a dispensary just because of the federal laws that are around it, right? I mean, like, what if you want to apply for a job somewhere where cannabis is still illegal? You can't have, like, I mean, like, you're going to look like you did nothing while you were in university because you can't have that on your resume. So what were you doing besides going to university, right? Well, you can't really tell them.
Can't get a mortgage. You can't buy a car. There's so many things you can't do unless you have a legit job.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we got one more before the break. I had to count the stories on the top because I lost count going through. We are going to head over to High Times for the first time, actually. And this one caught my eye. It kind of really upset me a little bit when I read it. Hong Kong is expected to ban CBD.
And according to the Hong Kong Free Press, a Hong Kong Legislative Council panel on security announced in June that it would pursue a ban on CBD. In a written paper, the council claimed that the reason for this is because CBD always has the potential to contain trace amounts of THC. It is nearly inevitable that CBD products manufactured from CBD isolates contain certain levels of THC, even though at trace levels or levels below the detention limits of various analytical methods, the council wrote. The enforcement is leading to a raid on many CBD businesses. In one example, the story of Daniel, a fake name to protect the individual's identity, explained the situation. He had operated his business for 3 years before the raid occurred. My mind was blank as I watched the officers taking all my products off the shelves one by one, said Daniel. Everything I did went to waste. Daniel noted that no officers told him that his products contained THC. Prior to the raid, he personally sent products in for testing that reported that no THC was present.
Oh, God.
Brilliant.
I'm sitting here with my jaw on the floor, like,
brilliant.
They want to ban it because there might be trace. Oh my, give me a break.
We've heard this for years. They ban any color on cigarette packages because it might entice someone. They ban colors on or flavored in vapes because it might entice someone. We're always banning stuff because it might do something to someone else.
Yep. Well, in that case, we should ban sugar and we should ban Tylenol and we should,
Coca-Cola and beer.
It's crazy, right? Hong Kong law enforcement has been targeting CBD businesses owners since November 2021, having seized more than 30,000 CBD products. An unknown number of these products were tested, and allegedly 1/3 of them contained THC. Mm-hmm. The Hong Kong Free Press also noted that 34 people have been arrested for trafficking dangerous drugs and possession of dangerous drugs. No charges have been made yet, and all of them were released on bail, although they are currently still under investigation. According to the Narcotics Division, any quantity of dangerous drug shall be a dangerous drug.
I don't know how anybody could class CBD with point something, less than 1% of THC is dangerous to anybody anywhere.
Yeah.
The Legislative Council's paper claimed that CBD will decompose into THC. Wow, that's a new one. Hong Kong Free Press reached out to University of California, David's professor Donald Land, who confirmed that this is true. But any THC created would produce an extremely small effect. The government position clearly points at the mere presence of any amount of dangerous drugs and not on the effects or lack thereof, Land said. This sounds like the reason they banned it originally in the States. This is why hemp was banned, because it might contain 0.000 of a percentage of THC.
Reefer Madness is not dead yet.
No.
Denise Tam, owner of the online CBD store Havens Please, also spoke out about the government's reasoning. As we know, there is no absolute zero in science, Tam said. The government probably found 0.00001% of THC. What's the impact of that? Clinical assistant professor Dr. Albert Chung from the University of Hong Long's Psychiatry Department told Hong Kong Free Press. I'm sorry, this is really hard to read, just by the way, because of all the different, it's like a tongue twister. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck? He told Hong Kong Free Press that research on THC is more limited than those analyzing CBD. To law enforcement, though, cannabis is defined as a dangerous drug. In Hong Kong, all psychoactive drugs, including cannabis, ketamine, opioids, are categorized by authorities into one group, dangerous drugs, Chung said, which is the same way it has been categorized up until, fights have started winning over here in North America, in the United States and Canada. I mean,
Class 1 drug in the States that has no medicinal value.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's the same fight that we have been seeing here. It's just going a little bit slower over there, obviously. I'm sorry, it's going a little bit backwards, because banning CBD because it has 0.00001% of THC is just,
all the people
my mind's blown.
They could help are not getting help now. It's insanity. And Chung recently published a study called Attitudes and Beliefs of Medical Students on Cannabis in Hong Kong. Although his students were supportive of training and research on cannabis, Chung believes it could take years for Hong Kong to recognize the effectiveness of CBD as a medicine instead of a dangerous drug. It could be quite difficult for Hong Kong to have medical cannabis in the next 10 years, Chung said. In the meantime, it appears that some patients who have found relief with CBD are stocking up and are expecting CBD to quickly disappear from store shelves for the time being. That CBD could even be sold in Hong Kong was a big step. Now we're moving backwards, said one customer.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Back in September of 2020, Hong Kong's first CBD cafe, called Found, opened in the Shuangwan district. However, the cafe announced on August 19th, so like 6 days ago, that it would be closing in anticipation of the looming CBD ban. Sadly, in spite of the in spite of it demonstrating positive impact, it has now become apparent that the Hong Kong government intends to adopt new legalization to prohibit the sale and possession of CBD, Found wrote on its Instagram page. We do not know exactly when it will take effect. It is expected to happen sometime around the end of 2022 or early 2023. With this, we have had to make the difficult decision to close the Found Cafe at the end of September.
Makes sense. Let's close all the businesses that aren't hurting anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's sad that the owners of this cafe have decided that that's what they have to do to protect themselves.
I don't think they have a choice. It's a communist country. They just come and take you away whenever they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sad way to live, and they probably don't know that they live like that. They don't know the rest of the world is a little bit freer.
No, because again, communist country, they'll have a lot of the outside news shut off, right? Mm-hmm. Sad. Well, I'm really, really sorry that this cafe is closing. But we now have to go pay some bills, and it means that we get a medication break as I'm sitting here with my joint in my hand. So you'll be hearing from our sponsors, and Glenn and I we'll be right back to bring you more cannabis news after the break.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Hi folks, Scott from stfattiesday.com here, and we're absolutely stoked to tell you about our brand new program called Pass the Peace Pipe and our partnership with Legacy 420 out of Tyndonega. We are absolutely proud to be partners with these people. They are an amazing group that have helped so many people with their amazing cannabis medicinal products. And we are working together to gather funds to build the first ever Indigenous specific opioid addiction center here in the Bay of Quinte area on Tyndonega land. So we need your help. We need you to repost this video and go to our GoFundMe campaign, because on this October 17th, St. Fatty's Day, we are going to be starting the campaign where we pass the peace pipe from one side of the country to another to unite our country, to gather awareness, but most importantly, funds to build opioid addiction centers across the nation, one build at a time.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the VCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
Growing your own cannabis is easier than you think. Whether you're growing for recreational or medical purposes, BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. From the standard 4-plant recreational systems to the latest cutting-edge hydroponic equipment, BMA can customize your package and do it at discount prices. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and ask us for a free estimate. Or call 613-967-9888 and we will give you an estimate over the phone.
The only way to go.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Hey, I didn't switch the page. We are back and we are live. Hey, Glenn, we have 5 more stories to cover, including one in the Mushie Moment. I had to flip the page to be able to continue reading, and I didn't do that while we were. I did get the next story ready, though, so I did get something done, so I'm quite proud of myself.
And we're going to one of my favorite places, Costa Rica.
Nice. Yes, bye. We are heading over to MJ Biz Daily. We're going to talk about Costa Rica. Its president unveils plan for recreational cannabis law.
Costa Rica's president says he intends to bring recreational cannabis legislation to the legislative assembly and separately publish rules for the Central American country's medical cannabis and hemp businesses. Rodrigo Chavez, elected as president in April, laid out the plans in a speech marking his first 100 days in office, according to the Tico Times. The president said his administration is preparing regulations for medical cannabis and the cultivation of hemp for industrial purposes, which the country legalized before Chavez took office.
Regulations considered the boundaries for businesses and consumers carve out the size of any potential new legal cannabis market. So entrepreneurs will be watching closely for what those rules do and don't allow. Chavez did not reveal any specifics regarding recreational cannabis, the Times reported, but during his presidential campaign, he said he supported recreational cannabis legalization and regulation, which is fantastic. We were talking before the show that you really love the area, and I was planning on heading there next summer. So we were both quite happy to see to see this story.
I love Costa Rica, and the only thing I didn't like about it was their cannabis laws. It's a pretty safe country, and there is lots of cannabis. It's very, very expensive. On the average, about $300 an ounce for good cannabis, not crappy stuff, put it that way. So I didn't have a lot when I was there, but I wish it was legal and the prices would come down and people would feel a lot better because there's a lot of acceptance of cannabis there.
Yeah. They just have to get the government to follow up. And that's very reminiscent of what it was like here in Canada.
Yes, exactly what it was like in Canada. It's the same thing. Canada and the States and them, it's the same thing. Everybody just wants to do what they want to do.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're heading back over to my favorite publication again, the Fresh Toast. I freaking love it. I don't know why. And the Fresh Toast was saying, what makes weed so sticky? And is it a good thing? I think so.
As you begin to purchase more expensive cannabis flowers, you may notice that the buds become stickier. This is because some of these plants were bred to contain a lot of trichomes, so they are highly potent. Have you ever wondered why your weed is so sticky? Without cannabis, many things can affect the overall experience, or with cannabis. Some people prefer their cannabis to be really sticky, as that signals that the cannabis flower is high quality. So why is it that some cannabis is sticky, icky, while other strains are dry and crumbly? This article will explore the science behind weed stickiness and teach you everything you need to know about sticky cannabis.
Why is weed sticky? The secret lies in the trichromes, a subject the stickiest buds are well versed in. Trichromes, also called cannabis crystals, are small hair-like growths on a plant. Cannabis plants are full of them, but they do far more than just look good. Trichromes contain resin, which gives cannabis its power. Often referred to as essential oil, cannabis resin is gooey. It's a gooey, thick substance that may be translucent or have a red or orange color. Many plants and trees produce resin. However, cannabis resin contains cannabinoids, which makes it unique. As it turns out, trichromes on weed are resin glands. And look at that. Look at the trichromes on that one.
Yeah, it's a nice looking bud.
Beautiful. Go ahead.
The sticky bud, but clearly indicates that many trichomes have formed on the flower. As trichomes increase, so does resin production. A higher resin content means more terpenes, THC, and cannabinoids. A resinous weed with crystals may have better medical potential, a stronger high, and a better smell and taste than if it has minimal resins or is not sticky. As you begin to purchase more expensive cannabis flowers, you may notice that they already said that. Here we go. Sticky marijuana resin is often compared to tree sap. You can imagine how similar the two are if you've ever felt sap in your hand. Just like cannabis, you can attribute the smell of sap to terpenes, the compounds in tree sap.
Yeah. If you ever heard of hash is just a cannabis resin. Hash is a concentrate formed by compressing the parts of the cannabis plant that contain resin. Want to learn how to make hash at home? Click this link. Additionally, some people refer to the remnants of cannabis residue as resin, which may originate with the word residue. This article will restrict the term resin to natural substances produced by plants. Interestingly, the strain Pink Man Goo, amazing strain, is considered to be one of the most resinous strains. Yeah, it comes through on the filter when you're smoking it.
Wow.
The buds of this indica strain, a cross between Granddaddy Purple, Grape 8, and Northern Lights, are densely covered in resin. According to laboratory tests, samples with the goo glob contain 4% additional THC than samples without the goo.
Wow.
That's actually a large amount. This
is
is evidence that a significant amount of THC is contained in resin. The resin contributes to the sweet flavor of the strain, and many people report that Pink Man Goo provides a very relaxing effect. It does, and like I said, when I'm smoking it, I get resin on my lips coming through the filter. There's just so much in the dry
Wow.
parts. Yeah.
Wow. Sticky weed versus dry weed. It's no mystery why sticky weed is prized by cannabis connoisseurs. It's often more potent and flavorful. However, Is dry bud less desirable because it's not sticky? Turns out both have their benefits. Dry weed has a bad reputation. However, it is often more affordable, and it is still effective. So many people prefer dry weed for this reason. Even though the cannabinoids and terpenes are not as abundant as in sticky weed, plenty is still available. Some weed is simply dry because it contains less resin and fewer trichomes. Consequently, the product is less potent. It may be that the plants were left to dry for a long time, thus losing some potency, or that strain may contain as many trichomes as stickier varieties. However, really dry weed indicates that cannabis is past its prime. You can still use it, but it will have lost much of its flavor and some of its potency as plant gets older. It becomes drier. Still, it should remain sticky if stored properly. Nevertheless, you shouldn't assume that you can stash sticky bud and pull it out a year later with its trichome still intact.
Yeah. Is sticky weed good? Sticky icky is a term you have probably heard, and it typically refers to good cannabis. When it's cured properly, cannabis flower is moist and sticky to the touch. If the cannabis doesn't have those specific characteristics, it's likely not as high quality or flavorful. There are a lot of slang names for lower quality cannabis. So low quality cannabis is often called round town brown or reggae. We of course had Mexican brickweed when I was a youngster in my late teens and early 20s, and we refer to some of the drier stuff as the grandchild of the Mexican brickweed.
Yeah.
Depending on your situation, you can choose your cannabis carefully. You should choose your cannabis carefully. For example, you don't need to use very sticky weed for edibles, since you can achieve the same effect and save money by using the dry cannabis. Even though sticky cannabis isn't ideal for baking and can be expensive to share, it remains a preferred choice for many users. Furthermore, if you're gathering with friends, purchasing drier cannabis in larger quantities might be more economical. Sticky buds tend to be more expensive per gram. So by choosing the dry flowers, you will be able to get substantially more bang for your buck. And it's not always bad. Like they said, it gets past its prime. But it switches to a CBN. So it becomes, even your sativa cannabis is going to become very, very, very sleep inducing.
And I like personally my cannabis a little bit on the drier side because I use a bong, and it tends to burn much nicer that way. I don't like it super, super dry because it'll just pull through.
Yeah.
But I like it a little drier than normal.
Yeah. And everybody has their preferred way.
Yeah. If you want an exceptional cannabis consumption experience and can afford it, sticky weed is the way to go. Due to the potency, many find that using less is more cost-effective than using drier variations. If you want a strong and long-lasting high, or go for the super sticky stuff. But if you're trying to save money and don't need such a powerful punch, dry weed will do the trick. Get started on your cannabis wellness journey.
Yeah. Have you started your cannabis wellness journey? Jointly is a new cannabis wellness app that helps you discover. I don't really think that has anything to do with this. So we will, if you want to take a look at getting started on your wellness journey and take their advice on that one, we'll let you go. But I don't think it has anything to do with the sticky ickiness of cannabis. And I like my sticky icky cannabis. Like the more of the stickier it is and whatnot. I mean, like, if I had sounded like I was complaining about that pink mangoo, I absolutely wasn't. I love having the resin on my lips. I don't wipe it off or anything. I mean, I'll eat it because it's resin. It still has all kinds of medicine in it, right? So I absolutely love sticky, icky weed.
I like it. I really like it because obviously it's more potent, but I dry it a little bit drier.
Yeah. No, I mean, like when I'm using my bong, like once it gets. Like I do, like I'll have cannabis that goes past that sticky icky and gets to that little bit drier and probably similar to what you like, and I do that. That's what I save it for. Is I save it for my bong.
Yeah, it's perfect. So, you just can't let it go too far because then it's just powder and it just goes right through everything.
Yeah, and if that happens, it goes into edibles.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like they said, right? I mean, that's definitely what I do. We are heading back over to High Times now. And at High Times, we're talking about a study where cannabis and psychedelic use among young adults reaches historic highs.
Young adults in the United States are using cannabis and hallucinogens spiked to reach historic highs, according to the new federal research released this week. The data from the National Institutes of Health found that the use of both pot and hallucinogens among individuals between the ages of 19 and 30 increased significantly in 2021 compared to 5 and 10 years ago, hitting the highest levels among the age group since 1988. As the drug landscape shifts over time, this data provides a window into the substances and patterns of use favored by young adults. We need to know about more about how young adults are using drugs like cannabis and hallucinogens, and the health effects that result from consuming different potencies and forms of these substances. National Institute on Drug Abuse Director Nora Volko said in a statement on Monday that accompanied the study, young adults are in a critical life stage and honing their ability to make informed choices. Understanding how substances can impact the formative choices in young adulthood is critical to help position the new generation for success.
The data is part of the NIH-sponsored Monitoring the Future study, which has been conducted by researchers at the University of Michigan since 1975. The latest edition of the MTF study found that in 2021, past year, past month, and daily cannabis use on 20 or more occasions in the past 30 days reached the highest levels ever recorded since these trends were first monitored in 1988.
Wow.
The proportion of young adults who reported past year cannabis use reached 43% in 2021, a significant increase from the 34% 5 years ago in 2016 and 29% 10 years ago in 2011. Cannabis use in the past month was reported by 29% of young adults in 2021, compared to 21% in 2016, 17% in 2011. Daily cannabis use also significantly increased during these time periods, reported by 11% of young adults in 21, compared to 18 and 16 and 6% in 11, the study said.
And the researchers said that the past year, hallucinogen use has been relatively stable over the last few decades until 2020, when reports of use started to increase dramatically. Last year, it reached historic levels. In 2021, 8% of young adults reported past year hallucinogen use, representing an all-time high since the category was first surveyed in 1988. By comparison, in 2016, 5% of young adults reported past year hallucinogen use, and in 2011, only 3% reported use. These types of hallucinogens reported by participants included LSD, MDMA, mescaline, peyote, shrooms, and psilocybin, and PCP. The only hallucinogen measured that significantly increased in use was MDMA, also called ecstasy or Molly, showing statistically significant decreases within 1 year as well as the past 5 years, from 5% in both 2016 and 2020 to 3% in 2021, study said. So they're using less of that.
Yeah, I mean, and I just, MDMA is different than ecstasy or Molly.
Okay.
And I don't think that, MDMA is the main ingredient in ecstasy and Molly, but ecstasy and Molly also have additives.
Okay.
That's why, if you've heard of MAPS Canada, the multiple, oh my goodness, MAPS. It's the psychedelic studies, right?
Okay.
They have studied MDA, which is the purest form, and then MDMA on how it helps people with, anxieties or depression. And it is an amazing medicine that helps people with those things. But they add into, I've seen ecstasy pills that are brown or green, and there were high warnings with that because that contains things that are more addictive, such as heroin tar or cocaine or, something like that. So in the pure form, it's not addictive and it can help, as well as, it can help you party. But the ecstasy or the Molly, that stuff has been mixed and it has been pressed into pills, and that stuff can be absolutely terrifying.
I just learned something new. I had no idea.
Yeah. I learned that. When did I learn that? I learned that probably about 3 years ago when I was first starting to learn about psychedelics, and I was turned on to like this MAPS program, and I started following them, and they are constantly posting about this stuff, and I find it very interesting.
Wow, every single show I learn new stuff. Every show.
It's so cool, right? Like, I mean, doing these new this new stuff really it's really interesting. Yeah, the study indicated that alcohol and hallucinogens were far from the only vices, and saw increased usage by young adults last year. Binge drinking, which is defined as having 5 or more drinks in a row in the past 2 weeks, returned to pre-pandemic levels in 2021 after significantly decreasing in 2020. 32% reported in 2021 versus 28 in 2020. And 32 in 2019. Wow, that's gone back and forth according to the research. I think that's because during the pandemic, a lot of people found psychedelics and cannabis.
Yes.
And that gave them the drinking is more of a social thing. Then you go out to the bar and you drink with your friends versus you stay home and pop a mushroom or smoke a joint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, high intensity drinking, which is defined as having 10 or more drinks in a row in the past 2 weeks, was at its highest level since it was first measured in 2005, reported by 13% of young adults in 2021 compared with 11% in 2005, the study said. The study did, however, show significant decreases in past months cigarette smoking by young adults and non-medical use of opioid medications in the past year, surveyed as narcotics other than heroin, compared to 10 years ago. Nicotine vaping, on the other hand, increased significantly among young adults in 2021, despite leveling off in 2020 during the earlier part of the pandemic. Oh.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Always learn something.
I'm going right back to your favorite place.
Yes, we are going back to my favorite publication. I love this one. We are heading over to the Fresh Toast. Once I click add to stream, there we go. We are heading over to the Fresh Toast. I get to say it 3 times in this particular show. We are looking at a study. We are looking at cannabinoids, THC, and CBD beat opioids in managing chronic pain. Hallelujah.
Are cannabis-derived cannabinoids the ultimate panacea to the opioid crisis? A new study that was published recently in Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research has made interesting revelations on the safety and effectiveness of cannabinoids versus opioids in treating chronic pain. From the study, it emerged that cannabinoids, which is THC and CBD, have a greater benefit safety profile compared to opioids used to manage chronic neuropathic pain. And they're just figuring this out now? Wow.
I've known this for a while.
Yeah.
Neuropathic pain, simply known as nerve pain, is termed chronic when it persists for more than 3 months. The pain is usually sharp and burning and is likely to be debilitating. Is it ever? The causes vary and include diabetes, among others. Traditional treatments of neuropathic pain include the use of anticonvulsants, antidepressants, and opioids. Good Lord.
Yeah.
The study was conducted by a team of pain specialists and psychiatrists, patient representatives, and scientists. 12 different pharmacology treatments, including THC and CBD, were considered for the study. The researchers sought to compare the safety and benefits of the drug compounds. The researchers created a model to score the performance of each drug in terms of safety and clinical benefits. And here's what the research revealed.
A combination of THC and CBD in a ratio of 1:1 had the highest score of 79. CBD dominant, yeah, that's what I always thought. It was a combination of the both.
Yep.
CBD dominant treatment followed that with a score of 74. THC dominant treatment came in third with a score of 72. They're all pretty good. Deluxotine and gabapentin scored in the 60s. Amitriptyl, tramadol, and ibuprofen scored in the 50s. Methadone and oxycodone scored in the 40s. Morphine and fentanyl scored in the 30s. An analysis of the results showed that a THC and CBD combination provides significantly higher safety benefits, so much so that even if the pain reduction and quality of life score was halved, it wouldn't change the result. Wow.
Yep. What does this mean? Well, when THC and CBD are combined in equal ratios, they provide a safer and more effective treatment for neuropathic pain compared to the traditional treatments. While the combination had a score of 79, opiates had a score that ranged between the 30s and the 60s. This supports previous research that suggests cannabinoids can help with the opiate epidemic crisis that is ravaging millions in its wake. And we see that every day with all of the cannabis substitution projects, whether it is this actual CSP that goes by that name, or there are many other of the same projects going on doing the same thing, giving high dose edibles and smokables to people that are trying to get past the withdrawals.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. So 79%, that's huge.
It's incredible. And these are things that we've known for a long, long time that they've been kind of suppressing, and they're just bringing out these new studies now.
We're just discovering. Yeah, right. But you do know what time it is now, Glenn, what this has brought us to, what time of day it is.
It's a great time. I love Mushie.
A mushy moment.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Makes me smile every time.
Yeah, good job, Al. Good job. We are heading over to Live Science. Over here, we are going to read that magic mushroom psychedelic could treat alcohol addiction. Trial finds.
Well, that was really close. I didn't have the article. I can't get into it, though.
Oh, no.
Give me 1 second here, and I'll be right in. There we go. Okay, I'm in now.
Good.
Psilocybin, the hallucinogen behind the trippy effects of magic mushrooms, may help people with alcohol use disorder cut down on or stop drinking when they take the drug in conjunction with talk therapy. In a recent clinical trial, the results of which were published Wednesday in the Journal of AMA Psychiatry, people with alcohol dependence received 2 doses of either psilocybin or a placebo medication, specifically diphenhydramine, which is Benadryl, which could not be expected to affect the participant's symptoms. Once considered a distinct condition, alcohol dependence now falls under the broader classification of alcohol use disorder, a medical condition characterized by impaired ability to stop or control alcohol use despite adverse social, occupational, or health consequences.
Yep. In addition to medication, all participants were offered psychotherapy sessions during the trial. 4 sessions prior to their first medication dose, 4 between the first and second doses, and 4 during the month after treatment. Both treatment groups reduced their drinking during the 32-week trial, but the group given psilocybin improved more dramatically. The rate of heavy drinking in the psilocybin group dropped about 83%.
Wow.
Holy shit. Compared with pre-treatment levels, compared with a drop of 51% in the placebo group. Well, that's still friggin' amazing, too.
Yeah, the placebo group.
51%. Yeah. After 8 months after receiving their first dose, 48% of the psilocybin group had stopped drinking altogether. That's basically 50%, and that's bloody beautiful, compared with 24% of the placebo group. And still 50% of, the placebo group is still, basically at a quarter. And that's wow. When you put it into their mind, hey? I stopped drinking right after my first psilocybin session. It worked that quickly for me. John Costas, a trial participant in the psilocybin group, told reporters at a news conference on August 24th. This eliminated all of my cravings. Wow, that just makes me so happy.
Mm-hmm. The therapeutic effects of psilocybin and therapy were considerably larger than those reported for existing drugs used to treat alcohol use disorder. And it's remarkable that the effects persisted for months after treatment. Dr. Michael Bogenschutz, who's the lead study author and director at the NYU Langone Center for Psychedelic Medicine, said at a news conference, if these effects hold up in the future trials, psilocybin could be a breakthrough in the treatment for alcohol use disorder, he said. The idea of using psychedelic to treat alcohol use disorder dates to the 60s and 70s, when scientists began testing LSD for this purpose. Dr. Henry Kranzler, director of the Center for Studies for Addictions at the University of Pennsylvania, Perelman School of Medicine, and Emily Hartwell, a clinical psychologist at UPenn, were not involved in the trial, wrote in a commentary who published in the JAMA Psychiatry.
Although relatively small, those early LSD trials hinted that the trip-inducing drug could help patients reduce their alcohol consumption and avoid the negative consequences of alcohol use more efficiently than placebo pills or stimulants, such as these two drugs could. However, political pressure soon brought such psychedelic researchers to a grinding halt. Yo, did they ever. The article by Bogenschutz et al. In this issue of JAMA Psychiatry reflects the rekindling of interest in the use of hallucinogens to treat alcohol use disorder, an approach that, despite its early promise, has been quiescent for half a century. It's been around forever. You know, Kranzler and Hartwell wrote. It's a great article. So I'm in love with this article. I'm very happy to be reading this.
The new trial included 93 participants, ages 25 to 65, who had been diagnosed with alcohol dependencies based on criteria in the 4th edition of the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. In the newer DSM-5, the condition would be classified as alcohol use disorder. In the 12 weeks prior to screening, the participants drank alcohol on 3/4 of the days included in that time frame, and they drank heavily on more than half of the days. Heavy drinking is defined as 5 or more drinks in a day for men and 4 or more drinks for women. Once recruited, the participants were randomly sorted into 2 treatment groups, psilocybin and placebo, in an attempt to reduce bias. Both the participants and the trial organizers were unaware of these assignments. However, more than 90% of the participants and supervising therapists correctly guessed which medication had been administered, likely due to the drug's dissimilar effects. This somewhat limits the study's results because the trial was not truly double-blinded as intended.
Oh, gosh. Diphenhydramine can be mildly psychoactive as the doses used in the trial, but the placebo still didn't come close to mimicking the mind-altering effects of psilocybin, Bogenschutz said. The lack of appropriate placebos is an inherent challenge of conducting psychedelic research, he added, which is very, very true. I met a lady who was doing a psilocybin research here, and they decided to not do the double-blind study simply because there is nothing that could be on the other side for a placebo that would affect them the same way.
I would know if I got a placebo in that study right away.
Yeah, very, very easy to tell. The treatment sessions took place 4 weeks apart and were supervised by a team of therapists and medical staff. Participants received a slightly higher drug dose their second session, provided they agreed to the increase. At the first session, people in the psilocybin group received 25 milligrams per 154 pounds. And I just want to clarify that when they're talking about that, anybody that's thinking, oh my gosh, well, they only had 25 milligrams. Like that's 1/100th of or whatever it is of a gram. They're not talking about the dried mushroom. They are extracting the psilocybin and giving them 25 milligrams of actual psilocybin. So 25 milligrams of actual psilocybin actually equals out to about 1 1/4 grams of mushroom if you were to eat the mushroom itself, of dried mushroom. And just so people know, like, they're not getting a tiny amount. They're actually getting something that you will be able to tell you've taken it. So it's 25 milligrams per 70 kilograms of body weight. And during the second, the dose was either 30 milligrams or 40 milligrams for the same amount of weight, depending on how intense each participant's first trip had been. Several mild, short-lived side effects, including headache, nausea, and anxiousness, were more common in the psilocybin group than in the placebo group, they said. Several serious adverse events took place outside the clinic during the trial, and all of these occurred in the placebo group. These included several vomiting and psychiatric admissions due to suicidal ideation that happened during binge drinking episodes.
Wow.
Yeah.
We did not detect any significant safety issues related to psilocybin, Buchenschutz said. However, because the drug raises blood pressure and heart rate and can sometimes cause incapacitating psychological effects, it's crucial that patients take the drug only under careful supervision, he noted. Trial participants experienced a range of emotions and perceptual experiences while on psilocybin, some pleasant, some painful. However, following the acute experience of their trip, many patients in the placebo group reaped significant benefits from taking the drug, in combination with undergoing therapy. It's definitely impacted my life, and I'd say it saved my life, Costa said. But how exactly does the treatment work? The truth is, we don't know, but researchers have proposed some possible explanation, Buchenschutz said.
Yeah, like LSD, psilocybin plugs into structures in the brain called serotonin 2A receptors, which appear in high quantities in regions of the wrinkled cerebral cortex involved in high-level cognitive functions such as introspection and executive function. Live Science previously reported. They've often thought that serotonin levels have to do with happiness and depression as well. So it's that part of the brain that they're talking about. It's thought that by activating these receptors, psychedelics can boost connectivity between brain networks, allowing signals to zip between different brain areas with greater ease than usual. In the context of depression, it's thought that the psychedelic-driven mechanism may help people break out of rigid negative patterns in thinking. More broadly, psilocybin may reset brain circuits in such a way that new learning is possible in a way it wasn't before. Absolutely. Dr. Charles Marmar, chair of the Department of Psychiatry at the New York University Langone Health, said in a news conference, this, in turn, may accelerate the learning process facilitated by talk therapy, he said.
And we can hypothesize that there's this enhanced potential for change. And in the context of therapy, the psilocybin may enhance the ability of people to make those changes, Buchenschutz said. But again, some researchers needed to fully understand the mechanism by which psilocybin treats alcohol addiction. Next year, Buchenschutz and his colleagues will launch a larger trial that will take place at 15 sites and likely take 2 to 3 years to complete. At that point, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration will dictate if and when the treatment can be approved for widespread use, although the time when that may happen is uncertain. Marmar said the NYU team anticipates the approval will eventually come. All time, just takes time.
Yep. Yeah, the governments want to, they want to do their research and they want to learn because they don't understand. I would love everybody to understand it, and I would love them to just listen to the people that have done it for years versus having to, prove it all over again. But hopefully if it's official this time, then it'll stay official.
I hope so. I have to run. I have someone coming to look at my house in about 15 minutes. So,
okay. No
peace,
problem.
Everybody.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Bye now.
Bye. And that's it, folks. Glenn's out of here, and that leaves me to say goodbye. That's our Reefer Report for today. Wow, Reefer Reporters by myself. This is crazy. For today, what is today? Today is August 25th, 2022. And from the legacy420.com news desk, and in closing, well, we'd like to thank you for watching, and thank you to our sponsors, bmahydroponics.com, Dr. Buck, CTS.com, legacy420.com, and the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop in Campbellford. And don't forget, you can catch Reefer Reporters, Reverend Kelly and Al, Monday, live at 10 a.m. Have a great day, folks.
Oh, yeah, baby. That's lovely.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponics superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive.
The only way to go.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.